Hi guys, welcome back to the Universal Plywood channel. This is now going to be part 5 of 6, and this is the one where we wrap it all up. We get it all finished and we get this thing ready to use. So what this is, for those of you who haven't been paying attention, it's kind of like an entrance hall, coat hanger / little cupboard and what have you. And the point of this whole exercise is to prove to you that plywood can be used for really high-end furniture. There are 5 previous videos. Go back and watch those if you want to. Otherwise, stick around for the finale, and this is it. Okay, so where we're at is we have our box assembled, we have our rails cut, our joinery is done, our dowels are turned, we are ready to rumble. Well, what's next is we're going to fit our doors. Now, our doors are also going to be made out of plywood, so that's kind of cool. And what we've got here, some beautiful birch ply, same stuff as what the rest of this is made out of. And we're going to cut it to the exact size to slide into these slots over here. Now, how do we do that? You know how crazy I am about jigs and how most of them are made out of plywood. This is one of my favorite plywood jigs. It's actually called, I even wrote on it, it says rabbit fence. Okay, this guy here is to protect this actual fence. It's to extend it, but also allows me to change the depth and width of my rabbit without having to mess around with the blade. I'll show you what I mean. So all this fence is, and this is a fence you absolutely have to try and make yourself, okay? You get little clamps that look like this. It's kind of like a G-clamp with a little round foot on it. And all I do with this guy is I release him. Here's a little cool trick to know how to do. Otherwise you're going to sit and whine forever. Right. You'll notice that there are holes in the top of this jig, and I'm going to put those holes on the top, extend these so that I can clamp this fence onto my, it's kind of like an auxiliary fence, and I'm clamping it onto my table saw fence from the top here. So these clamps are not in the way. Just pop them on, tighten them up. This fence is now secured to here. Now look what I'm going to do, and I'm going to lift this up to show you. You stay there. See how that's been eaten away. Now what that allows me to do is it allows me to bury the blade inside the fence to an extent, which means that I don't have to worry about hitting this, but I also can, if I don't want to use the full thickness of my dado blade, I can actually push my fence over to get it to where I want to go. So I want to cut a step in, let's pretend this is going to be my door material, and I want to cut a step in this, but I want to cut it right up to the end, which means that I want the front edge of this fence to be in line with or slightly over the actual dado blade. So let me show you what I mean by that. I'm going to set this up like this. My height has been set. Let's do a cut and I'll show you what I mean. This is how easy this is. And just like that, we've created a rebate or a rabbit, which, if I've measured this correctly, will slide easily in my door track. There it is. I can decide that that's the front, and I can pop this into there. There we go. And there's my door sliding up and down its track easily. There's a little bit of play there, which is not the end of the world. That's perfectly fine. If I want to make this, if I want to dial this in, I can take my blade, drop it down a little bit so I remove less of this material. In fact, let's do that. Let's take my blade and drop it down just a tiny wee bit. Let's run the other side and see how that looks. Right, so now we've made a slightly fatter step, which is fine. I'm going to make this the front of my door. I'm going to pop you into your groove. Okay, now you can see that what I've done is I have made this step just a little bit too fat. And that's okay, because guess what we can do? All we have to do is lift up our blade a tiny wee bit and run it again. Okay, let's try it out. Into our groove. There it is, perfect. And that's going to run up and down in our groove, and it runs in both. There we are. Back and forth, nice and easy. Back and forth, nice and easy. There we go. So there's my door. And this works in this orientation. Obviously, here's my door, here's my carcass, and that's how simple it is to cut this. Now remember, that this is going to stop here because this wall is going to be here, and this is going to stop here because here is my other piece that sits there. Now we have this scenario where this is there like that, and there's our door in our wooden box sliding back and forth. That's where it stops. Right, so that stops right over there like that, and that is a perfect fitting door with no hardware, no metal hardware, none of that stuff. Just plywood on plywood. Plywood on plywood is perfect. Nice and easy. Simple, neat, tidy. Robert's your father's brother. Net sewer. Perfect. See, look, you made a door. How cool is that? Sliding door right up to there. Is that not the world's coolest, simplest thing? There we go. Sliding doors. One in front of the other, just like that. Okay, what could be more simple? Did we need lots of expensive tools? The answer is no, we did not. Did we need, all we needed was a table saw and a router. In fact, you could have probably done all of this with just a router as well. Off the couch. Get off the couch, get into your workshop, grab some plywood, make some finger joints, make a door, and you will impress the life out of your friends. Can't be that difficult. I mean, you've just seen it. It's like falling off a bicycle, just nowhere nearly as painful. Do it, it's easy. Simple, simple stuff. Okay, ready, steady, go. So what I've done here is I've cut a piece of wood, sample little piece of plywood, and I have cut it so that it fits just barely on the inside of this aperture over here. I've allowed for this little lip, so I've made a little, what we call a rabbit or a rebate, and that little rebate over there will slide into the groove. Now, remember that the groove at the top here is deeper than the one down below, which will allow us to slip this into that groove just enough to be able to put our other piece in to the bottom. It's going to rest on the bottom and it's going to slide up and down in our groove like a nice simple mechanism. Now, why is this a cool thing? Well, it's cool because a little bit of effort and we don't have to go and use mechanical runners. I mean, you can go to shops and you can go to hardware stores and all those things, and you can buy mechanical fitters. You can buy rails, you can buy bearings, you can buy rollers, all of those things. It's not really necessary. It really isn't. If you just work very neatly, you can just have wood on wood and it'll slide absolutely perfectly. Tiny little bit of paste wax in here and it'll run all day long, no problem at all. You've got nothing in here that can rust, nothing on here that can break. It's just a perfect piece of functional, beautiful furniture. Okay, so let's get cracking. This is our template. We're going to use this template to cut the actual doors to this exact same size. Then we're going to come back here, we're going to dry fit this, make sure it all works perfectly. Then we're going to pull the whole thing apart, slap some glue on, get our dowels put into place, and once that's done, we get to put some finish on. We're going to use a nice oil-based finish, and I'll show you some options there. But we want this to look really sexy. So once it's all together and it's all glued up, we are going to do some sanding. I'm sorry, but it is boring. It has to be done. And then we're going to put some finish on it. I can promise you this is going to be worth sticking around for. Okay, so remember this template that we had? This is where it comes in really useful. Nothing more accurate than the template itself. You can measure it and mess it up. If you keep this with you, it helps you set up everything. So I'm going to take that, I'm going to rest it right up against the blade here, and I'm going to pull my fence just until it touches, and guess what? That's the perfect setting right over there. And I've used my template to help me set this up. Now we're going to cut these two pieces over here. We're going to cut it to width, and once we've cut it to width, we're going to put our grooves in. So let's get cutting. Now what we're going to do is we're going to set the height of our blade, again using our template. So if I take my template and I drop my blade down so that it is just touching where that is absolutely perfect. Now I can knock that off. That will give me the exact same distance. I can hear you guys all saying now, but Alan, I don't have a fancy table saw like you. What do I do? Easy, just use a router. Just set up your router. It can be a little tiny trim router. It's not a lot of material to remove. It's just a case of setting it up carefully. You can do exactly the same thing with a trim router. Okay, so now we're going to do the other side. All we're doing again is using our template to help us set it up. Move it up against here. So now that's all cut. All we have to do is head on back to the assembly table, see if this fits. Okay, so what we have in here is a kind of a hollowing bit. It's kind of like a half round bit. So it will cut sort of a finger pull quite nicely. And what I've done is I've marked on the router table here in and where the out point is. So I'm going to start with my door lined up with the in part. When the router's turning, I'm going to drop this onto the router bit right up against the fence. Then I'm going to shift it along until I get to my exit point, which is right there. Then I'm going to lift it up again. Okay, the secret is to keep this up against the fence and to go slow. So we're going to do this in 2 passes. That's pretty cool. Now we're going to do exactly the same on here. That's going to look really good. All right, so we are back from our router table and we have our doors all nicely cut. We have our handle holes, our little holes done. They're going to look quite nice when they're cleaned up. So let's just fit these in and see how they work. That goes there. That's going to go here. Let's start with this one. And remember, into the top slot first, drop it into the bottom slot. Shift that off to the side. Let's do the top one here. Into there, get in there, and then off the side like that. Okay, perfect. So that looks like that's going to work rather nicely. Right, so our dowels are cut, our doors are fitted, everything is ready to assemble. So when we come back, as if by magic, it'll all be done just like ta-da! And there it is, all done, quick and simple. Remember, this project was made up of several different components, several different parts, but it's all made out of plywood. Remember, the point of the whole exercise was to answer the question, can you make beautiful high-end furniture with plywood? I would say the answer is yes. What do you guys think? If you have any comments about this piece, put them in the comments below. If you have any questions, put those in the comments below. Let's give you guys a quick retro tour of the components and how this thing goes together. So let's come around this side. Remember, we have our sliding doors and those travel back and forth in grooves that we put in with a router or a table saw. There's 2 grooves in the bottom, 2 grooves in the top. The doors themselves just lift up into the top groove, drop down into the bottom groove. That's how they travel back and forth. Okay, so it's a very, very simple mechanism, nothing too complicated. We've got our turned hooks over here, so if you've got your coats and your hats and all your scarves and things, those live over here, school bags, handbags, whatever you need. These hang over here. And bonus feature, we've got a key holder. We've got magnetic key holders. So I've got a couple of magnets that are mounted underneath the surface, and you can just hang your keys on those. When you're ready to go, see you later, grab your keys, and you're out the door. Nice and simple, nothing too complicated, but very, very pretty. We've got our beautiful finger joints on the corners. We've got our lovely turned dowels, also out of plywood. And all we have to do now is put some finish on it. So when we come back, we're going to be talking about the final part of this whole thing, and that is putting on finish. So we're going to discuss what kind of finish we're going to use. We're going to show you guys how to apply it, and then we're going to call this thing DONE, done. If you have missed any of the parts of this video, there are 6 parts to this series. You can go back, click on one of the links, wherever the link is here somewhere, and you can go back and watch those and follow me through the whole process. Remember, The whole idea is to try and keep it simple. You just need to be able to measure correctly, take your time, think about it, and you can make something just like this. Okay, so I think we've answered the question. Yes, you can make pretty cool stuff out of plywood. Yes, you can put it in your home, and yes, you can do it. So let's get on to the final part 6, and let's get this thing done.